Hi friends, welcome again. In this lesson, we are going to understand how to become interested in any subject. Though it seems very difficult, but then it is not that difficult. With little practice, we can do this. And on this note, let us start our lesson. You always find this that college student says, I can't get interested in medieval history. It is our purpose in this lesson to show the fallacy of this, to prove that interest may be developed in an uninteresting subject and to show how. In order to lay a firm foundation for our psychologizing, let us examine into the nature of interest and see what it really is. It has been defined as the recognition of a thing which has been vitally connected with experience before, a thing recognized as old. Impulse to attend, internal naturally arouses tendencies to act. The root idea of the term seems to be that of being engaged, engrossed, or entirely taken up with some activity because of its recognized worth. Interest marks the annihilation of the distance between the person and the materials and the results of his action, and it is a sign of their organic union. In addition to the characteristic just mentioned, should be noted that pleasurableness, that is your happiness, that usually attends any activity in which we are interested. A growing feeling of pleasure is the sign which notifies us that we are growing interested in a subject. And it is such an aid in the performance of work that we should seek earnestly to acquire it in connection with any work we have to do. The persons who make the complaint at the head of this chapter notice that they take interest easily in certain things. A Jack London story, a dish of ice cream, a football game, and they take interest in them so spontaneously and effortlessly that they think this interest must be born within them. When we examine carefully the interest of man and trace their sources, we see that our view is fallacious. We acquire most of our interest in the course of our experience. Professor James asserts, an adult man's interests are almost every one of them intensely artificial. They have been slowly built up. The objects of professional interest are most of them in their original nature repulsive, but by their connection with such natively exciting objects as one personal fortune, one's social responsibility, and especially by the force of inveterate habit. They grow to be the only things for which in middle life of man profoundly cares. Since interests are largely products of experience, then it follows that if we wish to have an interest in a given subject, we must consciously and purposefully develop it. There is wide choice open to us. We may develop interest in early Victorian literature, prize fight promoting, social theory, lignitic rocks, history of Siam, the collection of scraps, or medieval history. We should not be deceived by the glibness of the above statements into assuming that the development of interest is an easy matter. It requires adherence to certain definite psychological laws, which may call the laws of interest. The first may be stated as follows. In order to develop interest in a subject, secure information about it. You need to you should get to know everything about that subject. The force of this law will be apparent as soon as we analyze one of our already developed interest. Let us take one that is quite common. The interest which is typical young girl takes in a movie star. Her interest in him comes largely from what she has been able to learn about him. The names of the production in which he has prepared, his age, the color of his automobile, his favorite novel. Our interest may be said actually to consist at least in part of these facts. The astute press agent knows the force of this law, and at well-timed intervals, he lets slip through bits of information about the star, which fan the interest of the fair devotee to a still whiter heat. The relation of information to interest is still further illustrated by the case of typical university professor or scientist. He is interested in certain objects of research, infusoria, electrons, plants, ecology, because he knows so much about them. His interest may be said to consist partly of the body of knowledge that he possesses, that he already knows. He was not always interested in the specific obscure field, but by saturating himself in facts about it, He has developed an interest in amounting a passionate absorption which manifests itself in absent-mindedness of such profundity as to make him often an object of wonder and ridicule. Let us demonstrate the application of the law again, showing how interest may be developed in a specific college subject. Let us choose one that is generally regarded as so difficult and abstract that not many people are interested in, and it is philology, the study of language as a science. Let us imagine that we are trying to interest a student of law in this. As a first step, we shall select some legal term and show what philology can tell about it. A term frequently encountered in law is indenture, a certain form of contract. Philological researchers have uncovered an interesting history regarding this word. It seems that in olden days, when two persons made an agreement, they wrote it on two pieces of paper. They notched the edges so that when placed together, the notches on the edge of one paper would just match with the other. This protected both parties against substitution of a fraudulent contract at time of fulfillment. Still, earlier in man's development, before he could write, it was customary to record such agreements by breaking a stick in two pieces and leaving the jagged ends to be fitted together at time of fulfillment. Sometimes a bone was used this way because its critical feature was the saw-tooth edge. This kind of contract was called indenture, which is derived from the root dent, tooth, the same one from which we derive our word dentist. The formal legal looking document, which we today call an indenture, gives us no hint of its humble origin. But the word, when analyzed by the technique of philology, tells the whole story and throws much light upon the legal practice of our forebears. Having discovered one such valuable fact in philology, the student of law may be led to investigate the science still further and find many more. As a result, still he will become interested in philology. Means by finding the root of that word or from where it has come, how it is involved, why it is used that way, your interest, you can generate interest in that topic or in that subject or in that word. By this illustration, we have demonstrated the first psychological law of interest and also its corollary, which is the state the new terms of the old. For we not only gave our lawyer new information culled from philological sources, we also introduced our fact in terms of an old fact which was already interesting to the lawyer. This is recognized as such an important principle in education that it has become embodied in a maxim: proceed from the known to the unknown. A classic example of good educational practice in this connection is the way in which Francis W. Parker, a progressive educator of former education, taught geography. How he taught geography? When he desired to show how water running over hard rocky soil produced a Niagara, he took his class down to a creek behind the schoolhouse, built a dam, and allowed the water to flow over it. When he wished to show how water flowing over soft ground resulted in a deltoid Nile, he took the class to a low, flat portion of the creek bed and pointed out the effect. The creek bed constituted an old familiar elements in the children's experience. Niagara and the Nile, described in terms of it, were intelligible. Means the way he has demonstrated it, people will get interested to that topic. Naturally, in modern educational practice, it is not always possible to have miniature waterfalls and river bottoms at hand. Still, it is possible to follow this principle. When in studying medieval history, you read a description of the guilds. Do not regard them as distant, cold, inert institutions devoid of significance in your life. Rather, think of them in terms of things you already know: modern labor unions, technical schools, insofar as the comparison holds good. Then trace their industrial descendants down to the present time. By thus thinking about the guilds, either too distant and uninteresting, you will begin to see them suffused with meaning, allied with significance, a real part of yourself. In short, you will have achieved interest. There is still another psychological law of interest, and that is, in order to develop interest in a subject, exert actively towards it. Exert activity towards it. And how we can do that? We see the force of this law when we observe a man in the process of developing an interest in golf. At the start, he may have no interest in it, whatever. He may have even deride it, yielding to the importunities of his friends. However, he takes his stick in hand and samples the game. Then he begins to relent, admits that perhaps there may be something interesting about the game after all. As he practices with greater frequency, he begins to develop a warmer and still warmer interest until finally he thinks of little else, neglecting social and professional obligations and boring his friends ad nauseum with recitals of golfing incidents. The methods which the new fledged golfer develops an interest in golf will apply with equal effectiveness in the case of a student. In trying to become interested in medieval history, keep actively engaged in it. Read book after book dealing with the subject. Apply it with your studies in political economy, English, and American history. Choose subtopics in medieval history as the subjects for themes in English composition courses. Try to help some other student in the class. That is, try to teach them. Take part in a class, discussions, and talk informally with the instructor outside the classroom. Use your ingenuity to devise methods of keeping active towards the subject. Presently, you will discover that the subject no longer appears cold and forbidding, but that it glows warm with virility, that it has become interesting. That is, by keep working on it time and again, you will generate or you will actually become interested in that subject. It will readily be noticed that the two laws of interest here set forth are closely interrelated. One can hardly seek information about a subject without exerting activity toward it. Conversely, one cannot maintain activity on behalf of a subject without at the same time acquiring information about it. These two easily remembered and easily applied rules of study will go far toward solving some of the most trying conditions of student life. Memorize them, apply them, and you will find yourself in possession of a power which will stay with you long after you quit college walls, one which may you apply with profit in many different situations of life. Okay. So in conclusion, this discussion, we should note that the wide difference between the quality of study which is done with the interest and that done without it. Under the latter condition, the student is slave, a drudge; under the former, a god, a creator. Touched by the galvanic spark, he sees new significance in every page in your life. As his vision enlarges, he perceives new relations between his study and his future aims. Indeed, between his study and the progress of the universe. And he goes to the educational task not as a prisoner weighed down by a ball and chain, but as an eager prospector infatuated by the lust for gold. Encouraged by the continual stores of new things he uncovers, intoxicated by the ozone of mental activity, he delves continually deeper until finally he emerges rich with knowledge and full of power, the intellectual power that signifies mastery over a subject. With this, we have come to the end of today's lesson. And whatever I've told you is from a book, How to Use Your Mind, a psychology of study by Harry D. Kitson, who has done PhD and was professor of psychology in Indiana University. So it has to be right or something related or something very close, because he had studied a lot of subjects. He has conducted a lot of projects. So you must try at least these two methods to become interested in your subject. Okay, so with this, we will stop here. And in next lesson, I'll come up with some more strategies, some more knowledge, some more concepts and techniques about the memory and how to study well. Okay, so stay tuned for next lesson. Until then, keep learning and keep